Hello, everyone. My name is Ole Kagan, and I'm the Community Engagement Coordinator with LA County Library, and I welcome you to Work Ready, a look at design careers. Before we get going with today's event, I'd like to take care of some housekeeping and tell you about the Work Ready program. And now I'd like to tell you about the Work Ready program. Work Ready started in December of 2020 with the purpose of helping people get a job, improve their work situation, and plan a more sustainable career path. And we're doing that in two ways. One is we lend out laptops and Wi-Fi hotspots for 6-week loans out of 27 library locations, breaking down one barrier to applying for a job and getting online training. And two is that we provide virtual events just like this one on a range of work-related topics from the basics, cover letters, resumes, interviews, to deep dives into various careers like design and many other topics such as career pivots, returning to work, and many, many more. And you can find those on our YouTube channel in the Work and Career playlist. At this point, we probably have, I'm certain we have 60 or 70 or more videos for you to watch. So almost any work-related topic, any question you may have about work will likely be covered, if it's general enough, within that store of programs. So feel free to check it out, share it with anybody who you feel would benefit from it. Speaking of things that folks can benefit from, I also want to tell you about the great event we have for you next week. That is Work Ready Job Search Advice for People with Disabilities. That's going to be on Tuesday, March 19th at 12 p.m. So usually our Work Ready programs are at 11 on Tuesdays, but next week's program is going to be at noon. So Tuesday, March 19th at noon. Are you a job seeker with a disability? Join career coach and disability advocate Jacob Levy for tips on the job search, interviewing, and how to identify scams and red flags. I'm going to post the information for that event right in the chat, and so you can register for that. It is, of course, free, like all of our other library programs. And if you'd like to learn more about our virtual or in-person programs, you can go to our website at lacountylibrary.org. On the top right-hand side, you can click the button that says Events, and then that'll open up our calendar for you. And you can see all of our events in person and virtual for kids, teens, adults, older adults. And if you're only interested in our virtual programs like this one, you can hover over that button on our front page, lacountylibrary.org, and you'll get a little drop down that says virtual programming. You click on that, that'll just give you the Zoom programs. Also for all ages, also totally free. So feel free to browse that and sign up for the programs that you're interested in, share the programs that you think any of your friends, associates, colleagues, family will be interested in as well. And this Work Ready program is brought to you by the American Rescue Plan. Okay, let's get on to Work Ready, a look at design careers. And to give us that look, I'd like to introduce our presenter for the day. Blake Newton is a freelance graphic designer, originally from Miami, Florida, and currently lives and works in LA. She began her creative career by obtaining a degree in studio art at Florida State University. During this time, she studied photography in depth, mastered Photoshop, and cultivated her creative eye. After graduation, she moved to Thailand to travel, teach, and document her adventures. Upon returning to Miami, she began to show her photography and multimedia designs throughout galleries in southern Florida. Through her art endeavors, she began to learn different software and expand her creative skill sets and expertise. From there, she found herself teaching digital design and falling in love with inspiring others to pursue their creative endeavors. While teaching, she obtained her master's in marketing to better understand how design can be used to target a specific audience and expand a brand's identity. Today, she creates and consults companies and organizations on their visual identity and assists in their various graphic design needs. And with that, Blake, the stage is yours.
Hello, everyone. I want to thank you for joining today. And so I'll go ahead and start sharing my screen for you all. Let's go in here. Hopefully everything looks good.
Everything looks good.
Perfect. Okay, so we're going to take a look at design careers. And so I'm going to start talking about different career paths you can take. I also want to delve into what it's like working freelance versus working in-house as a graphic designer. Different educational paths you can take when you're pursuing a career in graphic design. And then we're going to overview some key points as well as identify what you can do next when you are going down a graphic design career path. So as Oleg already introduced, I am a graphic designer. I currently freelance. I do want to note that I do have experience working in-house. So again, I'll be able to kind of compare what that experience is like for you guys. So before we get started going down the career paths, I do just want to talk about the value of design. Design is absolutely everywhere. The minute you open up your phone, the minute you look outside, you're going to see some type of graphic design example. It's a very valuable thing in our society, as well as different companies and different organizations really value what graphic designers do. So I definitely think that it's a great career choice. So I'm going to start off with general roles. Graphic design itself is quite a general role. So I won't delve too deep into it because we all know what that is. But as a graphic designer, you do have many design capabilities and skills. Companies tend to look for you to be able to do a lot, working across web platforms and working across print platforms. And I also want to note that if you are getting your career started in graphic design as a graphic designer, you usually do start at an entry-level role or a junior position, and then you gradually progress into a graphic designer, a senior designer, and you can even become an art director or a creative director. So that's also something to look at, that there is a trajectory there. And as a freelance designer, I tend to do a lot of brand design, which encompasses logos and color palettes and really forming a brand's visual identity. I really want to delve into the next career path, which is UI and UX design. This is very popular currently, and it's also very, very valuable. So when people look at UI and UX, they're like, what is that? UI stands for user interface and UX stands for user experience. So you can kind of think of UI as the look of something, how it's designed. And then you can look at UX as how does it feel, the experience that you're having it when you're using something in particular. So it's very popular amongst, developing websites as well as developing applications. And it's really valued amongst companies and organizations because the user experience is so valued. And this role requires like a lot of research. So what is the consumer experiencing when they open up this app? Are they frustrated? I think we've all been on a website or an app before that causes us frustration. That's not designed really well, or it might be really hard to get to checkout, or it might be hard to navigate. So this is a great, so it's driven by psychology again, and it's driven by research. And so it's kind of like twofold, right? Because design is not always just about making something look aesthetically pleasing, but it's also about its function and its capabilities. I also want to note that for each career path, I do have software icons below it. So if you need to kind of like, reference what software do I need for this particular career, you can reference that there. And then another role that you may experience or you may come across is a print designer. And with print, you really delve into the print production. So not only you're a graphic designer, but you have a lot of print production knowledge and about print processes, right? So you're considering brand materials, you're considering the shelf appeal, you're considering, again, the user experience, of a product. And I also want to note that this role has a lot of reward, because not only are your designs living on the web or living digitally, but they become physical. So that's something that you want to consider, because a lot of designers, and I have a colleague who actually works as a packaging designer, she needs that tangible aspect to her work. And it can be very, very rewarding to have that. So when you're looking at different career paths, you might want to consider, do I want my work to live in the physical world? Do I want to see it physically? Do I want to be able to touch it? Do I want others to experience it physically? And it's also a different kind of process, creative process as well. Then it offers variety to your graphic design career. So it's just something to consider. Also, I wanted to note motion graphics as a design career option as well. So this is also very rewarding because you can make still things move. And this is very popular amongst, videos, commercials, movies. So it's adding this dynamic aspect to design. And so again, you still need to know the basics of design, but you can make things move and you can make them dynamic. Then I also want to note a graphic illustrator career. So with this career, it does require a lot of traditional art, art skills. Animation is a plus. Illustrations are often used in packaging. They're used in ads. They're used for book covers. They're used in magazines. And it's something that is, it's fun, it's dynamic, and it's something to also consider. But I do want to note that it does require a lot of traditional like art skills as well. And it also requires how to look at or how to incorporate illustrations along with design. Because it's not just an illustration or a piece of art that lives on its own, but it is also incorporated with text. It's incorporated with layout. So that's something to consider. And it's also a different career path that you can explore. And then I also want to talk about 3D design. So this one is definitely a more specialized and technical career. It can range from as simply as creating, product renders, as you see in the picture here, to creating characters and creating scenes, and creating architecture. And again, it's very technically advanced, but it is a career path to consider because it is very, it's very popular, it's very valued, and it's very specialized. Now, I want to delve into freelance versus in-house. Okay, so as a freelancer, I'm self-employed. I am my own professional. I essentially run my own company and I provide services to companies and to clients on a project basis. I also do contract work. When you work in-house, you're essentially employed by a company, an organization, or an agency. So the pros and cons of working freelance. So the pros of working freelance is that you have a very flexible schedule. You essentially make your own schedule, which is one of the biggest perks of freelance and why a lot of people look towards it. You have the ability to choose your clients and your projects, which is also nice. Sometimes I don't necessarily want to do a project or, take on a client that doesn't necessarily align with my ethos. Also, you have the ability to again, make that own schedule, right? And fit in projects to your schedule. You have a potential for higher earnings because you set your prices and you can raise your prices as you see fit. You have a diverse portfolio, which is also fun. And you have the autonomy to make your own decisions. So again, you're your own boss. You have the opportunity for remote work, which is also great. And you have a variety of work environments. I can work, in my house, I can work in a studio space, and I can work at a coffee shop. Now, the cons of it is that it can come with inconsistent income. I would recommend, based on my own experience with freelance, it is nice to have a cushion before you delve into it. I actually started freelancing part-time before I started freelancing full-time. And I also want to backtrack and note that all the design careers that I went over, you can freelance and you can also work in-house. So going back into the cons, you also have a need for self-marketing and client acquisition. So you are you take on this task of having to market yourself. And it can be daunting, but it's all about getting into the groove of sharing your own work and building that community. So you're responsible also for your business operations. And That means, doing your own taxes, or you can hire someone to do them, but essentially you have to take control of your own taxes and your income. You have a lack of benefits and job security. So you are required to, keep things running on a tight ship for yourself. You are responsible for making your own benefits. Also with freelance, the con is sometimes there is a bit of isolation. I do find myself collaborating a lot with my clients and with my projects that I take on. However, you are essentially working on working with yourself and by yourself a lot. So you can build a community of other designers around you, and you can work with them too, which is kind of a way to counteract that. And then you have the potential for unpredictable workload. So it is I would say if you do decide to go a freelance route, there is kind of a period of time where you are getting into the groove of, of really scheduling and again, being your own boss. And it does take experience to kind of, make it work for you. And there is a learning curve. But I do think there's a lot of pros that, outweigh those cons. Now, working in-house, pros and cons. So the pros of working in-house is that, it is stable. You have benefits usually. You're usually in a collaborative and a team environment. You have opportunities for professional development. You have access to company resources and equipment. You have clear expectations and assigned projects, job security, stability, and potential for advancement within the company. The cons: limited control over your projects and creativity, fixed work schedule, less flexibility, you have to put in that PTO, limited variety in projects and clients, office politics and bureaucracy, potential for monotonous work, less exposure to different industries, and limited opportunity for higher earnings. Now, based on my experience working in-house and working in freelance, I can say that a lot of the cons, can present themselves as far as office politics and, getting designs approved up the ladder. Sometimes there's things that are just completely out of your control that can affect a lot as well. And the pros are there though as well. Like the stable income is great and the collaborative team environment is great as well. Now, let's dive into educational paths. And again, the design careers I went over, you can do a traditional path for each of them, and you can do self-taught for each of them. However, I do believe, and we'll go over that certain career paths do benefit more from the traditional education. And I also want to note that the goal overall for no matter what educational route you're going down is to master the design principles, to master the software required, and to build a very strong portfolio. I want to note that I have the portfolio highlighted for a reason, because the portfolio is essentially the thing that is going to get you hired. It is a reflection, of your knowledge and design principles. It's a reflection of your skill sets in software, but it also shows your creativity. And I'll dive later into a little bit of portfolio tips, but that's key. And if you can self-teach yourself and make a great portfolio, wonderful. And it's completely possible. I have a combination of traditional and a combination of self-taught. So let's talk about the traditional degree path. So generally, it's a 4-year degree, bachelor's degree or bachelor in the fine arts. I have a related degree to graphic design, which is in studio art with a focus in photography. So you can also have a related degree, but it does require a little bit more of self-teaching after graduation, because although I mastered Photoshop and I delved into Illustrator when I was in school, I had to learn other software that was necessary for a graphic design career. So the pros of having a traditional degree is that you have a comprehensive curriculum. You don't have to, make it up yourself or, find a course out there that, has it for you. It's already there. You're paying for that. There's an extensive depth of knowledge. When you get a four-year degree, you have access to resources. I must say that is nice. You have mentorship and feedback. Usually when you're getting a graphic design degree or any art associated degree, you have critique. And so you'll be able to get feedback from your peers and from your teachers, which is very valuable. There's networking opportunities. So you're already kind of building a network, with your colleagues and with your peers and with your teachers. You have credential recognition. You also have an opportunity for career advancement. Now the cons, absolutely the cost. And you are investing a lot of time. It's not flexible time. You have to go to class when you're supposed to go to class. Of course, you can do online school as well. But again, there's still limited flexibility with that. And I must note the next one as well. There is a lot of focus on theory over practice. It's not as practical as you think it would be. There's a lot of theory involved and not actual like tangible examples. And of course, there are school projects and things of that sort, but sometimes it feels very general. Again, the curriculum can be outdated. And that is a huge con when it comes to graphic design career, because graphic design is a lot about staying on trend. There's limited network opportunities. You can build your own network, but it's not like you are necessarily getting, unless depending on the school you go to, you're not necessarily getting network opportunities for people that are in a specific field that you want. And there's less portfolio focus. Because you're doing school-based projects, it can kind of be all over the place. And it's based on the portfolio is more so based on the curriculum than your actual area expertise or maybe the industry that you want to go into. So let's go into vocational learning, which usually is comprised of specialized courses tailored to a specific design career path or a specific subject, and incorporates practical skills and is more focused on job readiness. So again, the pros of it: practical skills, it's hands-on, it gets you ready for a specific job or career path. It's a shorter duration, so it's a bit more cost effective. Again, there's a specialized focus, there's a bit more flexibility than a four-year degree, and it does tend to focus more on portfolio building. Cons: there can be limited depth depending. There's also limited credential recognition, limited network opportunities. Again, it depends on your particular school and the particular vocational training that you're doing. There can be a variable quality with it. You really have to do vetting when you're going into vocational learning. And there can be less access to resources, and notably lack of transferable credits if you do kind of want to do a combination of maybe going to vocational and then getting a degree. And I also want to note that I would recommend vocational learning for, really technical career paths, or if you're already in the graphic design career and you want to expand your design skill set in a specific area. And so things with like 3D design, I think can benefit a lot from vocational learning. Now let's talk about the self-taught route. So this is essentially teaching yourself, and you kind of have to build your own curriculum with this. So the pros is that it is flexible, it's cost effective. You can kind of customize it to what you're interested in. You can have, in order to really learn through the self-taught route, you do have to have real world application. You do kind of, I would seek gig work and freelance work to kind of get my feet wet. You have to be resourceful. You are practicing your creativity all the time, and it is an independent endeavor, which can be nice. Now, the cons: there's a lack of structure. Again, you're going to have to, if you want to go the self-taught route, build your own curriculum, and I would suggest kind of building your own syllabus. And you do have limited feedback. So you won't be able to get that immediate feedback from a professor or a trainer. There's potential gaps in knowledge. Are you covering everything that you need to know? It can be time consuming and that you are building the structure for yourself. It can also be isolating because you're doing it by yourself. And then there's career limitations because sometimes a degree is preferred or required. Again, I would argue that your portfolio can get through a lot of that, but nonetheless, sometimes it is absolutely necessary or required or preferred for you to have a degree or some type of vocational learning. So I'm going to briefly go over the self-taught tips, and you'll have access to this afterward. But I do have some tips as far as, teaching yourself, education, online tutorials, paid courses, and studying trends is huge. Building an online community. I have a handout where I'll have some community resources. That is huge because you're going to have to essentially find your own group and community and potential mentorship to help guide you through the self-teaching process and help you get that feedback, which is so, so, so important to developing a design career and, building a strong portfolio. And then, of course, practicing and producing. So freelance and free work, doing passion projects. I noted copy studies here. I'm going to go ahead and explain the asterisk. So copy studies are essentially where you copy work that already exists, but you can't take credit for it. So I do want to note that you cannot take credit for that. You cannot sell that, et cetera, et cetera. But it's a great way to, practice your graphic design. And it's a great way to learn the skills and things that you need. And again, getting that feedback and building that portfolio. So I have this here because I think essentially what almost always happens is that you have a combination of all of the learnings. So it's really up to you, to take that time, to reflect and decide what kind of route you want to take. Because there's pros and cons to each route, and you can do a combination of all three of those things. And I would also argue that even if you go a traditional or a vocational route, that you're still going to incorporate a lot of self-teaching and a lot of those aspects that come with teaching yourself. So again, it overlaps. So what next? So I want to go into each of these sections, in more detail. And as you notice, this is not a linear path. I think when you go down a design career path, it's not linear, just like the creative process. There's a lot of overlap. There's going back. It can be a bit of a roller coaster ride, The design process itself, the creative process itself is a bit messy, but it's colorful, and it's impactful, and there's a huge reward at the end. So let's go ahead and start at the beginning, right? Reflecting. So I have some questions that, will be sent out to you as far as reflecting on where should I even start? So this is going to be comprised of, you have different design career paths. You also have different industries. And I think it's really important to kind of consider the industry that you want to go down in, right? Do I want to work in beauty? Do I want to work in tech? Do I want to work in health and wellness? Do I want to work in entertainment? Because that can dictate a lot of the design careers that are even available in those industries, what's popular in those industries. And also when you're reflecting, you want to consider what educational path do I want to go down as well? What position am I in life, And do I want to be a freelancer? Do I want to work in-house? And asking yourself specific questions will help you arrive there. And so once you decide, generally what path you want to go down, I also recommend looking at job descriptions. So you have, that knowledge of different design careers. You have knowledge of potential educational paths that you can take. And so now you can look at these job descriptions and see exactly what's required. And then you can start building your path around that. I would also suggest looking at people who are successful in design careers. Again, because you should definitely be consuming a lot of graphic design content if you want to go down a graphic design career path. And that means following people on social media and following the careers of graphic designers that you admire. And even reaching out to them and asking them, hey, how'd you get started in your career? I also have a hobby of looking at people's LinkedIn history, So if you find a graphic designer, maybe on LinkedIn, who works in a company that you admire, okay, what was their path? Then also, so once you kind of decide what path you want to go on, it's about studying after that, right? And it's about getting that education. Now we know that we need to master the design skills. We know that we need to master the software. However, I also want to stress that it's so important when you go down a design career and you want to pursue this professionally, that you study the world around you. And as I said before, graphic design is everywhere. I study signage when I walk down the street. When I go to a restaurant, I look at the menu. You really want to cultivate your creative eye and kind of critique, the designs around you. Okay, does this work? This website am I on? Is this made well? This app I'm on, what kind of user experience am I having with this app? This packaging, what is this material that it's made out of? Looking at illustrations and looking at design. So it becomes kind of like all consuming, in a fun way. And then also, again, studying those job descriptions, and then again, studying the paths of others. So let's branch off now to community. Um, I said before that, community is so, 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 so important. And also with community, and especially online communities, you're more provoked to share your work. Sharing your work as a graphic designer and pursuing this graphic design path is important. I feel like it can be daunting at first, because you are worried about other people's perspectives and whether your design is good or not. But design is all about, making mistakes, and it's about learning from those mistakes and seeking that constructive feedback, which can really help you perfect your craft. And putting your work out there is the first step. And honestly, it's the first step in being able to handle feedback, which is going to be present whether you're working as a freelancer with clients or whether you're working in-house. And you have to be able to take the feedback, and you have to be able to apply that feedback and be able to manage it as well. So building a community can really help with that. And, seeking that mentorship is really important as well. And reach out to me. My email will be on the next slide. You can definitely ask me questions anytime. Again, I love helping people pursue their creative endeavors, and I'm definitely open to offering advice. Now let's get over to the practice point again. And I briefly kind of went over practice as well and the different ways that you can practice. So obviously it's creating, and nonstop creating when you're pursuing a design career. And creating helps you practice the software, which is huge because it is about, having that technical skill set perfected. And I also think, again, getting those real life experiences and examples, whether it's doing free work or whether it's doing like gig work, freelance work on Fiverr, or pursuing maybe a case study in real life. Maybe you see that something can be improved with a company that you know of, and kind of creating a case study around it. And then also, I want to stress here two passion projects. So if there's a specific project that you want to do that really, gets you going and gets you excited, I definitely want to stress that. I actually got advice from a agencies started by freelancers that they said that passion projects are huge and they potentially can get you hired. So I definitely think that that's important. And last but not least, the portfolio. The portfolio is king, right? So that can really help advance your career, and it can help get you hired. And I want to note some things about the portfolio before we move on, because this whole path leads up to essentially building your portfolio. Your portfolio will be constantly tweaked and it will be constantly revised. And the portfolio is comprised of, your 5 to 6 best projects. But also I want to stress that the portfolio should display solving a problem. So I think that what tends to happen with some designers is that they display visually what they created, but they don't provide any text and they don't explain how they solved a problem. Design is about creating things that are aesthetically pleasing and visually impactful, but they're also about, again, functionality and solving a problem. So you definitely want to display that in your portfolio. And as you're creating and as you're practicing and pursuing, you want to keep that in mind as well. And that's it.
Thank you, Blake. Great
Thank
presentation.
you.
I think it's nice that there's questions that are coming in. And so now it is time for the Q&A. And folks out there, if you have questions, now is the time to place them in the Q&A if you haven't already. And Blake, if you're ready, we'll get started with the Q&A.
Yes.
The first question is regarding packaging design. Which program or piece of software is best suited for creating templates and then designing? So first, for packaging design, what's the best software? And then for designing logo, nutritional info, etc.
Okay, so the best thing for packaging design is Adobe Illustrator. Full stop. No, but also with that, so I'll expand on it a bit. Packaging, I want to just note that it is a different color code. And I apologize if that's kind of advanced, but RGB is like digital, and then CMYK is color, right? So you're working a different color code, and Adobe Illustrator is perfectly suited for that. And it's perfectly suited for the different sizes involved with packaging. And it is the perfect program for that.
Those kind of detail, I like those kind of details. CMYK is for printing, right? Because
Mhm.
the way you combine the colors. Interesting,
Mhm.
yeah. For design beginners, that's something that's important to know.
And then there's also
Yeah.
cool software out there as well, that can help. Because, when you do packaging design, you have a flat lay, right? Like a die line that you're fitting the design into. And then there's the other side of it where you could create a mock-up, like a real life example that's more like three-dimensional. And they have Pacdora is another place you can explore just for fun as you're getting started. And you can see how cool they kind of mock it up for you. And it's awesome.
Pacadora. This like a website?
Yes. I don't know if I'm spelling it completely correct, but
I
it's,
made a note of it to look for
yeah.
it later, just to see. I'm just curious what it looks like, and I'll put that in the follow-up email so the folks can have it too.
Mhm.
So the next question is, speaking of beginners, any advice for finding internships, especially for those that are no longer students?
Yes. Um, so the obvious is like LinkedIn and Indeed and things like that. Um, there is an Instagram page. I think it is, and I can maybe give it to you later.
Mm.
I think it's Graphic Design Kids, and it's not for kids, but they'll post internships as well. And there's different resources that are specifically tailored towards graphic design internships in different cities. And again, a lot of this I found on Instagram, and just kind of again following graphic designers and consuming all that content. And like in the handout I put the Reddit thread as well, where there's a lot of graphic design resources and feedback you can seek. And also word of mouth. And that's something that I didn't really dive into the PowerPoint, but as you're sharing your work and you're telling people you're pursuing a design career, I think it's really important not to keep that hidden, because in your network of people that you might know someone, you might end up networking with someone who needs a graphic design intern. You can also position yourself as an intern if you're willing to do free work, because there is a lot of, advanced graphic or senior graphic designers out there who do need an intern, and are always seeking extra help. So that's something you can do. And then also businesses, if you want to offer free services to businesses and you think that they can benefit from it, you can walk into a business or reach out to a business and offer yourself as an intern.
So you need to put yourself out there a little bit. Maybe
Mhm.
get out. If you're very shy, get out of your comfort zone.
It always helps. And I think that as creatives, you can kind of get introverted sometimes. And even I go through waves of it. And just getting in that practice of putting yourself out there does really help, because it can help you get clients if you want to go a freelance route. It can help you just learn of an opportunity that you didn't even know existed.
Make new friends. Sounds good.
Yeah.
So this is a really important question for folks who are interested in the idea of getting into a design career. Can you discuss the different levels of income for the different design career paths?
So that is definitely going to be dependent on your city, largely. Okay, but as far as a junior graphic design role, of course, should I get specific with numbers or?
Yeah, why not?
Okay. So a junior graphic design role, could be anywhere, again, depending on your city, like from the 40 grands to the 60 grands. And then as you climb up the ladder, and you will, obviously get paid more. So a lot of junior graphic designers kind of do look for like an art director role to progress into, because art director roles can be around, 70 to 90K, depending on the company. And then you can branch into being a creative director, which does take time. It takes, years. But creative directors are definitely in the six-figure realm. So that's usually kind of a design career that people look down as far as the traditional in-house route. But sometimes the more specialized your design career path that you choose, the more you will, can potentially earn. And I would say that 3D designers make good money, and UI UX, and that's kind of why I wanted to stress it so much, is a really good design career path to go down, especially when you're thinking of income, because there's a lot of companies, a lot of tech companies, who need the UI and the UX designers. And there's some pretty good job security with it as well. I have a colleague who is a UI UX designer for a bank company, and they started off great pay. And that's usually a trend that I see with that role as well.
And so uh, there's also, depending on, like you said, the city, if you're interested in the potential of moving, looking at LinkedIn or Indeed and just seeing there's certain states that require posting salary info. So looking at some of those, and then you can really compare different job titles, different job responsibilities. It's helpful to get a sort of a picture of
Mhm.
what's possible.
And on that too, on the city note, I would also like to add that as a freelance designer, moving to LA was actually quite beneficial for me as well. Just because the network is it's a bit more of a need for the creative industry in larger cities, or in more cities that are industry focused. But now that I built up, clientele from the city, you can kind of, move around after that. And that's one of the benefits of being a freelance.
I'm actually curious, and not a question that I was asked in the chat. Would you be able to pick up and move somewhere else and just work virtually?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes. And that's definitely one of the benefits. You know, I've considered, going back to Thailand to, or, somewhere else, and, working remotely for a while.
LA is a nice place though.
And I do like the fact that in LA too, there's a lot of benefit with so packaging companies, and when I used to do, like, I would have to call, the print production and things like that. But in LA, so much of it is here.
Mhm.
And so much of my designs were coming out of California that sometimes you could just pull up and just be directly involved into the design process.
Nice. That's useful to know if somebody's interested in package design, see where the
Mm-hmm.
action is.
And also, I didn't really go into it because it's merch design. Like, when you're printing on merch and things like that, again, LA is a great place for it.
Mhm. What websites or agencies do you recommend to find freelance opportunities?
So Freelancer, uh, Fiverr, Upwork, and I put that in the handout
Mhm.
as well. And uh, again, word of mouth is also huge. You wouldn't believe, just by putting yourself out there, how much opportunities may come to you. And I know it's a bit daunting, sometimes to put yourself out there, but there's definitely a benefit to it. And also, again, putting yourself up, Facebook groups as well, and like graphic design groups. You can say you are looking for freelance work in those chats and in those groups. And, you might be surprised somebody might get back to you.
And
Again,
just
that community building.
it's just a small plug for previous Work Ready program. If what we're talking about is giving you anxiety right now, we do have a program, I think it was in December, called Smashing Through Networking Barriers. So you watch that program and it'll help you overcome some of that shyness or introversion or whatever the challenges are. And we talk about those challenges pretty in depth in that program.
And I would like to say one of my favorite quotes is practice makes permanent. Practice doesn't make perfect, it makes permanent. So practicing putting yourself out there, practicing the work that you need to do, it's going to kind of become second nature.
That's a wise rephrasing of that popular nugget.
Mhm.
So the next question is, how would you define passion projects?
Okay, great. That's a great question. So a passion project, okay, like for example, one of my most recent passion projects is something that I haven't had the opportunity to do, right? And I've always wanted to make toy packaging. One of the things that I did as a photographer a lot, or I had a period of time where I was working with miniatures. And I love that space. I love the miniature world and I love toys and I love my inner child. And I was looking one time at jobs available and Mattel, I believe, or it was a major toy company. They were hiring for toy packaging, and I was like, wow, that sounds like such a cool project to do. I wish I had enough experience for it. And I was like, maybe that's something I want to kind of, build my skill set around or, learn. And so that's definitely one of the passion projects for me. It's kind of like seeing inspiration and deciding, you know what, that really gets me excited. I want to try to create that. And it could be even a series of stickers. It can be merch designs. It can be, I want to create a mouse pad. Like it's just essentially something that you see that you'd be like, I want to create that. And you're really excited about it and you're not required to do it. It's literally something that triggers your passion.
It's like I hear about that a lot from the perspective of software programmers. They'll they have a day job where they do whatever,
Yes.
boring or whatever job that they're stuck in, and that but outside of that, they use their programming skills to create things that they just feel like it. Like they see something that they want to do and create, a chess game or whatever it is.
Yeah, and I was digitally drawing for quite a while as a passion project as well. And it wasn't really necessarily benefiting me I mean, it did end up benefiting me financially, but at first it wasn't. It was just something that I enjoyed. And you tend to learn very quickly that way, because you're enjoying it. So it's nice to keep those passion projects alive. And then you also there's just a je ne sais quoi that kind of comes with it and an energy. And so again, I got that tip one time to never stop doing passion projects because, from this freelance agency that was like, that's how, some of my that's how a lot of people have gotten hired, is based on their passion projects.
Yeah, you're learning the whole time. I mean, you're
Mhm.
creating something. It's like it doesn't feel like learning because you're just doing something that you
Yeah.
really want to do.
Mhm.
Somebody asked in the chat, maybe connect with you on LinkedIn.
Oh, yes, yes. I'm Blake Newton on
We'll put
LinkedIn.
a we'll put a link in the follow-up email.
Okay.
I think this was in your presentation. PTO, paid time off.
hmm
I think that was probably in one of the pros and cons.
I am not exactly sure it was definitely in one of those, but so I'm trying to make sure not to delve too deep into it. Um, so you have to get paid time off if you work in-house, right? Usually you can't
It's
build your own
part of the
vacation.
benefits package. Yeah.
But if I were to dive into like how to freelance, you essentially, not that you have to ask permission, but you have to give your own self-paid time off as well and like structure that into your year. So again, if anyone wants to like reach out and like, I want to do a freelance career or I'm thinking about going freelance and I don't really know how to structure my hours or my pay, I can help with that. So it is about incorporating, PTO for yourself. But yes, when you're a freelancer, you are your own boss, so you can kind of dictate. Now, I do also want to note that as a freelancer, you can pick up contracts. And so that might create a little bit less flexibility because in contract situations, you do kind of have like a temporary boss.
So you have to really, in order to keep your work-life balanced, you have to set, a time where you're not taking clients. So you
Mhm.
like set certain dates where I'm on vacation.
And it took me quite and it's always learning with freelancing as well, but, I would say it took me a good solid year and some change to really, like, delve out all the kinks and learn everything I needed to about freelance, and I could have like, speed tracked that, by, like, just going on a course instead of just, getting my feet wet,
Learning
but
from experience.
mhm, nonetheless, yeah, yeah.
So you make a choice. I mean, when you get a job offer during your time when you've set it off, you say, "Do I want to? Is it more important for me to be off
Mhm.
or to make this money?" And
Exactly, exactly. Mhm,
and
mhm,
it's
but I can't stress
took
enough
a
though,
while to prioritize which one is which.
and I think as graphic designers, whether you're working freelance or in-house, um, we have a tendency to get attached to our work, which is understandable because it is kind of, your creative expression, but you can't get so attached to the point where, you're working so much overtime because you can get exhausted. You are looking at a screen for a lot of the day. Like this is it's taxing. You're sitting down in one spot. So you do have to keep that work balance alive, no matter what career path you decide to go down.
Something to
Mm.
remember for sure. Next question. Do you have any favorite job boards to find design work?
Um, I wish I want to see if I can pull it up right now because it is one of my favorite graphic design boards. But again, the Reddit thread, I think it's Reddit, it's r_graphic design, as well as LinkedIn. And there is an Instagram page. It's called the Design Kids.
Yeah, you mentioned that. We'll definitely put that in the follow-up email.
And I'll also I think there's a couple others too that I'll send to you as well for the follow-up email.
Sounds good. How do you know, this person, how do I know if I have a strong portfolio?
So community, 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 and seeking that feedback. That's the only way you're going to know. Um, I think, of course, there's a checklist, right, that you can definitely cross out. So just briefly, you want your portfolio to not be, too much. Again, you want to hone it down to your favorite projects, and you want to hone it down to projects that reflect where and with who you want to work. Because I've done an array of work as a freelancer, but there's certain categories of work that I don't want to be hired for. So the project may be strong, but if that's not something that I want to continue doing, I'm not going to advertise that. For example, I used to do a lot of social media graphics, and it's not something that I want to do anymore. So I don't really showcase that too much on my portfolio. It's not a highlight, it's not a focus. But something that I do enjoy doing is brand design. So I've tried to tailor my portfolio more towards that. And I actually do a portfolio revamp as well. It's constant, it's constant, but you definitely want to gear it towards that. That's one. Then two, it needs to be clean, easy to navigate. And then three, again, you want to incorporate text and nice visuals. So the best way to kind of determine whether it is good or not is to seek feedback, build that community, seek feedback from experienced individuals who can maybe give that to you. Find a mentor, that can help with that as well. There's also, if you're brave enough, there's some TikTok pages, and maybe I can find them for you, who they will critique design portfolios. Yeah, yeah, they won't say who it is, but they will critique it for you. And I'll see too if I can pull out some other resources where you can, present your portfolio. And those, again, those Facebook groups and those Reddit threads, like people will help. They will click on your portfolio and they will critique it for you again. And they'll help you kind of, you know, carve it out and perfect it. Um, but and you can reach out to me. I can I can help as well. I can help as well. Mhm.
Thank you.
Mhm.
That's a big question. Am I good? Is it good? Is it good? How do you
Uh-huh.
know?
And
You
I,
have
I seek I
other
seek
people.
Yeah, I seek feedback from peers as well. Sometimes I make my own little focus groups. I want people to look at this who have a lot of design experience, and then I kind of want to show it to people who don't have any. Just how does it come across the eye to someone who isn't necessarily trained in design?
That's a actually really interesting point to see, because some of the people who will be hiring they're not graphic designers, they're just people who have a company. And so
Hmm.
they're looking at it, yeah, from a very different perspective than an art director with, 20 years of experience.
Oh, and I also want to note too that it's important for your design, a portfolio to kind of illustrate problem solving, especially if you're going down like a UI UX trajectory. Um, Again, design is like, why was this created? What impact did it have? If there is any tangible example, sometimes when you're first starting out, it will be kind of more case study based or like fictional case studies, and that's okay. But the idea is like, okay, this was the goal of this project, and was it achieved or did I get close?
Not sure if you mentioned what school did you attend. I think you meant it was Florida State University, right?
I went to Florida State University for my undergrad, and I graduated from Florida International University for my master's degree.
Where can you buy affordable software when starting out? That's a tough question. Adobe
It
software is so expensive.
it is. So, there's a couple. Okay, so when you're first starting out, if you're a student or if you work in education, there's usually discounts. And you want to look into discounts that Adobe offers. Because I'll go into a couple free softwares, but starting off with Adobe is great because that's industry standard. And for a graphic design career, you essentially need to know the big three, right? The Photoshop, the Adobe Illustrator, and the InDesign. And just having access to the Creative Cloud, kind of opens up so much. Um, I've actually in the past have split my Creative Cloud membership with a colleague because it offers two devices. So, if you have somebody in your family or that you can split it with, that's an option. But I do stress that it's so important and maybe doing the free trials and yeah, I'm committed to this, I need this, that it is a good investment for this career path. I think that if you just kind of maybe want to get your feet wet, you can use Canva. You can use Canva for a lot. And it is, you can either pay, use it for free, or you can use the Pro, which is not as expensive as Adobe. So you can kind of, get started there. And there's some other free programs as well. But again, I feel like the Adobe is worth it because it is the industry standard and it's going to just teach you so much. And before you know it, you're going to be like, oh, this was worth it. This is worth the X amount of money a month. And also, if you pursue maybe an internship, or again, if you go down a traditional education path, or you might have access to the software as well. And, maybe Oleg, maybe you can address this. I don't know if there's any access to software at the libraries.
Not specifically, not Adobe software. So those I think the price is a little steep for the
Mhm.
library to afford on our public computers. Um, I know that, I mean, student rates tend to be a good way to go if you're part of a class, or if you can join a class. It may pay to just join a class, then you can get the student rate, and then you have it. I know it's changed. Adobe, it's a subscription now, right? It's so you pay like every year. Is that right? Or can you just buy it outright?
You pay every year or
Mm.
monthly. And usually you save money by paying yearly.
Yeah, so
Mhm.
maybe somebody starts out on a student rate if possible, and then once you start to get work, or then you can pay the regular rate. But yeah, that's one of the challenges. But if somebody wants to be a chef, they have to get a set of a very expensive and durable knives.
Exactly.
Many careers have that sort of thing.
And I feel like there's, certain loopholes you can also do. Like you don't need, I think you do need good RAM on your computer, it's beneficial, but you don't have to get the latest laptop. You can get something that's refurbished, you can you can start cut back on certain areas, while you're starting. But I just feel like the Adobe software is just one that you definitely want to invest in.
Yeah, it almost sounds kind of corny to say, but gotta be creative about
Yeah,
finding ways to make it work.
resourceful.
Yeah. So where can you buy affordable software starting out? That was, I mean, this is exactly what we're talking about, but it's right. You have to get it for Adobe, you get it from the Adobe website. And at this
Mhm.
point, there's not, I remember back when I was in school, it was, 12, 13, 14, I don't even remember how many years ago. I actually bought the student Adobe, the Photoshop. I bought it in a box. That
Yeah.
was a while
Yeah,
ago.
and it was just
I
one
gotta have
time.
the
It was
CD.
great. It was great. It was great. And I'm not gonna lie, I had my student discount for a little too long. But I went back to school, so I was like,
You gotta be resourceful.
resourceful.
So for packaging design, do you design it in RGB and then switch to CYMK or CMYK for to print it, or do you just design it using the
Um,
right color scheme, or I don't know what it's called,
some people will argue with me on this, but I absolutely believe you.
controversy, drama.
Because some people do like to work in RGB and switch, but I don't think that's the most proficient way. I think it's a bit more industry standard to start in CMYK than rather than to convert. Because with CMYK, there's a lot of, especially with packaging specifically, because you want to get colors correct. Because once CMYK is dull, like the colors dull out, because essentially the printer doesn't have the expansive range of digital. So when it goes to print, it can't print the same color range that you see digitally. So it tends to start to dull out. And I think that it's important to create in CMYK so you can see what's going on. And there's ways to color match as well. The Pantone booklets, all that. So
So
again,
once
but
you start getting into it, that's a whole,
yeah, packaging
that's the
design.
experiencing that you get from your first projects and from being in school.
And print design does kind of require like, a different kind of a skill set, a specialized skill set, something that you have to kind of research and develop, because there is a lot of print production knowledge that you have to learn. Especially when you're just starting out, you can kind of learn for yourself, get something printed and kind of see it. But if you're designing something for a company, it's definitely a whole print production process. And I think the best way, if you're designing something like packaging, is to reach out to the printer that it's being printed at, and they can kind of help guide you as well with what they need in order to get an accurate print.
Somebody in the chat, and I gotta commend them. They posted a link to our colleagues over at the Los Angeles Public Library, at the Central Library at the Octavia Lab. They apparently have digital media stations where you have access to all sorts of cool software. Octavia Lab is a cool place. So if you're a designer and you're interested in, I would just visit the Central Library. That's a great place.
Yes, yes, I love that. I love that because I know, and that's one thing about being a freelancer too that kind of forced me to do is I started doing more research and just research to survive. And I realized there's so many opportunities and resources available around you that you don't even realize. It is amazing. It's amazing. And I think that we could take the time out to really kind of research and like see what opportunities are available and what resources are available in the community around us, because it's actually pretty vast, especially in California. I've really realized that there's a great resources all around you.
Yeah, they also posted a link to the Long Beach Public Library, which also has these kind of resources. Thank you, Chelsea.
Yes, thank you.
So, what is the best way to display your portfolio work?
So, website. Website digitally is one of the best ways to do that, because we live in a digital age. It's great, to just click on a link, be able to see it. You want to make sure your portfolio looks good on web and on phone, and on iPad, because you never know how a potential person, a potential company or client is looking at it. So you want to keep that in mind. That is usually the most popular way. However, I do think that it's worth noting that if you're going out for because traditionally graphic design portfolios were, you would bring a
It's like
actual portfolio
a
folder in.
portfolio. Yeah, it's like a big, right? It's what people carried, and inside it, you open it and you pick out your stuff.
And I think if you're doing print work, especially, packaging and things, and you have tangible examples. That's another thing I want to note too, that I think is also good when you're getting started in graphic design, or you're in the beginning of your graphic design career and you are doing freelance work and you are doing projects and you're making things that are tangible. Make sure you're getting these things. I have a colleague who, if she did packaging, for a client, if she couldn't get them from them, she would order a sample from the printer so she can have a physical copy. It's really nice to have physical copies of your work, especially when they live in a physical space, because it is kind of impressive, especially this day and age, if you do go in for a job interview and you have tangible examples of your work, especially if you're going for something that is in print design. I think that's and it's refreshing, especially this day and age, to see and to feel someone's work. But yes, website is the best way to showcase your portfolio.
And they're also being resourceful on that end. There are inexpensive ways to put up a website,
And you can
free or
also
nearly free.
there's also Behance as well, that I think, and I put that in the handout as well. It's a great graphic design community and resource, and you can kind of build a portfolio on there. It's not stylized, but your graphic design portfolio doesn't necessarily need to be stylized. It's about showcasing your projects appropriately.
Do you recommend any vocational course for 3D, for I guess 3D design and also AI image generation?
Okay, so as far as a specific course for 3D, I might have to send you a link, because I'm actually vetting some myself because I really want to get into 3D design. So hopefully I can provide some more detail on that for you. And then for AI imaging, there's courses out there, and there's a lot of free resources out there. If you're into Midjourney, which is a very popular, AI image producing software, on Discord, there's a lot of resources available in the Discord platform itself. I delved into AI for a while, and a lot of excuse me, my questions were actually answered from, Discord itself. But again, I think that one, oh, okay, I'll send you another link too, because
See a
it's
lot
nice.
of links. I mean, it's really good. There's so much out there. That's the scary thing and also the fantastic thing.
Yeah, with AI, it's about also like there's different sites too that have prompts that other people have already used. And again, the Midjourney, application itself, the Discord, it's you see other people's prompts. So it's kind of about experiencing with that and just like trial and error. That's a new realm. I'm glad someone asked about it because I think it's quite fascinating.
I know there are people out there who don't know what Discord is. Can you give like a two-sentence description of what is Discord?
To be honest, I don't know. It's kind of like it's a how would
Platform.
yeah, it's a platform, but it's kind of set up like a chat room. Um, it's very popular amongst gamers and like Twitch and tech. So Discord is the easiest way to talk over voice, video, and talk. Yeah, it's essentially it's a chat community, and they have Discord servers. So it was a learning curve for me when I got on Discord, especially playing around with Midjourney and the AI, because it's not set up like you would typically, see some type of software. It was a little confusing because it looks like one big chat room.
Right, and you just type in like there's different ways to query it.
And then you can make your own little separate room where it's just, your prompts and whatnot. But I love to see what other, like real time, what other people were putting in. So yeah, Discord is essentially a chat, a big community with different
There's
rooms.
many different Discord servers, and each Discord
Yes,
server is like its own community. I
yes.
I know I've used Discord as a user, and so I'm part of like I'm a fan of sumo wrestling, so I have like a sumo
Oh,
community.
wow.
Like I'm a sumo Discord server that I check in every so often, and but yeah, Midjourney use I when I first it's been a while since but yeah, when I first got onto it, I was like, what? It's like same this
Ah,
response here, like what? But yeah,
yeah.
it's really interesting. Yeah, you
Mhm.
can also, I mean, anybody can go to the Discord website and kind of learn what it is. And
Yeah.
then many people now have Discords. I mean, there's a variety of communities. It's like what used to be like internet forums, now
Yes,
exist as a Discord.
exactly. Mm-hmm.
See, when working with deadlines, what are some tips to avoid experiencing art block or lack of inspiration. I've never heard the term art block before, but as a writer, I kind of understand what that means. Interesting.
Yeah, the creative block. There was a huge sigh there. Because it is, I think it's really about sometimes you have to take a step back. You have to, get away from the work. You have to go outside, for lack of better words, you gotta touch grass, you know? And again, kind of just get out of the change your environment a bit, because that helps a lot with the creative block. Or give yourself some time to rest. And again, we're talking about a deadline, right? So the time is it's still ticking, but you would be surprised what a minute, or what 5 minutes, 15, 30 minutes can do. Making sure you're taking care of yourself. You make sure you're eating. Sometimes I get so involved in the graphic design process, I feel like I'm getting blocked and I get anxious, and I'm like, oh, I'm just hungry. Like, let me eat,
Like the
and
basics,
nothing too
sleep,
heavy,
eat,
nothing too
safety.
heavy. Yeah, nothing too heavy, because I'll eat a hamburger and I'll so but also I think too, sometimes, especially with deadlines, and again, I still think a 10-minute break can do a lot. But sometimes you need to just go back either to the drawing board, maybe like look at inspiration, to kind of like get your creative juices flowing. And then also, sometimes if there's a block, reaching out, depending on the relationship, the client, or, going back to the drawing board, if there's any questions you feel like may need to be asked to kind of help you guide yourself through the process, anything, like what is causing you this block, is a specific question that maybe can be answered. Sometimes that helps.
I like the touch grass. I feel like that should just be
Yeah.
like a quote, just like in it, like almost like a meme, just touch grass. That's it.
No, really, really, it helps so much.
It's a
Like,
real
I just
thing.
need to be
It's
in
just,
nature for a
yeah.
second.
It's like in like a superhero, just like you have to touch the ground. Like it was like it
Yeah.
was what is this mythic figure that has to that has to touch the ground? Theseus maybe? They have to it's a mythic wrestler who had to touch the ground in order to maintain his power. And I think it was Hercules who lifted him up, and that's how he defeated him.
Ah, but no, it's really like that though. It's
Yeah,
really like that. Gotta
yeah.
circulate the energy.
Gotta get
Mhm.
literally in touch with nature.
Mhm.
That's it. How did you decide that pursuing a master's degree in marketing was the right decision for you, rather than pursuing something else like a master's that further specialized in design or art that you did during undergrad?
So that was twofold. Um, because I was at a point where I did want to continue pursuing art, but at that time, I definitely was focused on security, and financial security. And I so it was a combination of, okay, like I want to do something that's adjacent. And if I do ever, want to pivot careers or things like that, I can go more into marketing if I want. And I do like the role of consulting as well. So, the marketing degree helps a lot with that. And it really kind of, I really wanted to be able to become kind of like a not just an artist, but be able to, design considering target audience, consumer needs, brand identity. And my marketing degree really helped with that. And also just to know, I did want to get my master's also for another reason. So I could pursue a path of teaching later down the line, like in a collegiate setting.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah, then marketing gives you the framework for considering the
Mhm.
considerations of the market,
And it was a
art
good,
and business.
yeah, and it was a good program. And that's kind of how I ended up in it.
Is it better to have a breadth of projects showing in your portfolio, showing digital design, logos, packaging, or in our portfolio, or is it better just to focus on one medium? That's a hard question to answer with like, is one better than the other?
I would say if you feel like you have a large scope of work or a large breadth of work, the best way to kind of showcase it is by company or by client. Because that way it's kind of like branding, you showing the branding. Here's the logo. here's the packaging for this brand, here's like the social media templates, this is the color palette, these are the typography used. So you're kind of all honing it into one section that makes sense, and you can also divide it into mediums as well. Like, these are my motion graphic examples. These are my packaging examples. And these are my, my email marketing examples. You can do that as well. You just want it to look cohesive. I find going by client is usually better and easier to digest, because you can also speak on, the impact that you had with the project, or working with the specific client. However, I would say that starting out, you might feel it easier to kind of divide it based on medium. Like, these are my illustrations. This is my, my layouts. This is, and I've designed my portfolio that way too. Sometimes I go back and forth, but generally, like now, definitely prefer it to be kind of client-based.
You mentioned this earlier. There was a type of design you submitted, I think, of social media images. You decided that that wasn't what you were interested in doing, so you kind of didn't remove that, but kind of deprecated it a little bit in your portfolio. So I think that also speaks to this kind of question: is one thing better than the other? Well, what do you want to do?
Yeah. Yes, that's actually the biggest question. It's
Because
like,
what do you want
what
people to
do you want to
see?
be hired for? Exactly. What do you want to be hired for? What kind of projects do you want to do more of? And I do understand too, because sometimes starting out, you're like, well, this is my best project, and I want to showcase it. I don't have that much more to show. Like when you're first starting out, right? I don't have much more to show. It's not necessarily something I want to keep on doing, but it is a great, it's exemplary of my, my creative skill set. Like, I feel like I have to show it. And sometimes you are in that predicament, but as you grow, and that's why it's important to keep the portfolio updated.
That way you can also guide the way you want your career to go.
Exactly.
This is an interesting portfolio question too. I hadn't even thought about this really. What problems can I think of for presenting my portfolio work instead of making it visually pleasing? So you mentioned earlier, like you want to, show that you're solving problems. Like, what does that look like? Like, what is a design problem that somebody might tackle in their portfolio?
Mhm. So, like, I do want to note that visually appealing is very important. Like, you definitely need to
It
have
is
that.
design. Yeah.
Uh-huh. And some of the best way to showcase your visuals is like, mock-ups. Like, okay, I created this poster. What does it look like in a mock-up in the real world? Having the mock-ups can really make it visually appealing. Now, about the design, solving the problem. So let's say, I was working with a brand who didn't have a lot of social media engagement, or a lot of they were kind of suffering from not enough brand recognition, or they just wanted to grow their audience, across the board. So it's like, where did they start? And then how did my designs help? Or if I'm doing an email marketing campaign, like, what was the outreach? Like, what were the clicks, on my email compared to other emails? And a lot of that kind of requires analytics. It does help to have that, so you can kind of speak to that. I helped grow their audience. I helped with my designs. I helped reach X, Y, and Z amount of customers. So helping, those companies solve that problem. Or it could be as simple as, this is where the company started with their branding. This was their logo, and this is how I improved it. And you may not have access to the analytics. I would say, as you're working with clients and companies, if you're working in-house as a freelancer, ask for that. Even starting off, start developing that brain, because when you make your resumes, you want to have numbers on there, and you want to have tangible, like, key performance indicators,
Yes, yeah.
even in design. And sometimes, again, that's hard to access. But if you get in the groove of thinking about those things early on, Or if you created a social media post for a company and it got, a lot of likes or was used as advertisement, screenshot it, and keep those numbers and think about the numbers, as you're doing design. But again, it could be as simple as, this is where they were at before, and this is how I helped improve their brands. Like if you did a little brand revamp, redesign the logo, change their colors, their typography. And this is kind of how you geared them towards X, Y, and Z.
Sounds good. Let's just do a few more questions and then because we're getting to time here, and you've been answering a lot of questions very kindly for folks.
Oh, I love answering questions.
So you can be a librarian too.
Yeah. My sister's one. She loves it.
There we go.
Uh-huh.
Any advice for transitioning from freelance art direction to film and TV to corporate graphics or marketing position? Would I need to get a certificate in marketing? My background is graphic design with 15 plus years in film and TV industry.
Hmm.
It's a pretty specific question, but I feel like it can apply to other people who are making career pivots as well.
I think it would take, looking at a specific role or example, of a job that you want to get into, and looking at the description of what's required. Because I feel like that can be, you know, it's pretty detailed. And, marketing, yeah, I would say like maybe a certificate or some type of training, and it can definitely help. Um, and just grabbing that base knowledge of marketing, a lot of it you can learn on your own, but I do think it's really nice to get into the nitty gritty and the details of marketing, especially if you want to roll in it. So you understand like the numbers and the different type of businesses and what they're looking at. Um, and then obviously a strong portfolio, on-trend portfolio, that's current and that is maybe exemplary of, current marketing trends. And again, too, I think it's about, thinking about either, a specific job description and also a specific industry you want to go into as well, and helping, hone the path towards that. I hope that answered it.
I think that it covered kind of in the most general, because you don't have specifics, in the most general kind of way. I think it did. So what you're saying is that it's useful to be able to demonstrate that you have the skill, the kind of the base level of skills that weren't part of your previous role. So if you have an experience in X, but the job is, shifting to where you might use some X, but you're going to need some Y, to show them to get a certificate or to do self-learning or, get a degree, to show them that, well, I can do this. Is that
Mhm.
is that kind of
Yes. And I think also that focus on user experience. I know when I gone into interviews in the past and when I speak with clients, I talk a lot about just the kind of typical marketing jargon, but um, I think it's pivotal to start switching your mindset to that. So, everything is about the target audience, it's about the consumer, it's about the user experience, and constantly thinking about those things. I wonder if like maybe a path in UI UX would be quite beneficial, you
mm,
know?
yeah. And when there are classes on
Yeah.
UI UX, so in that field in on LinkedIn Learning, so it's a nice way to kind of dip a finger in to take one of these. Does this speak to me? Is this interesting?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So the next one is this is kind of a mindset question. I've noticed that job openings kind of want you to be able to do everything from print to motion design. How do you get to a place where you're comfortable in different specializations that aren't necessarily your favorite to do?
Practice. Yeah, it's about, because I definitely have that as well. Like there's definitely certain software and skills that I prefer doing, and others I'm just like, I don't want to do it, but I know how to do it. And so it's really about, getting the job done. I also though like to kind of challenge myself.
Mm,
Um, so if there's something specific that I need to do, for example, I I love animation and I love making things move, but it can be challenging and it can be kind of daunting. And frustrating. And so it's like a kind of sometimes, I'll still clear that. I know easier ways to animate, but if it's complicated, I'm like, it's that sigh. But then sometimes I'll be like, I really want to do this with this. Like, I don't know, get a burst of inspiration, or I'll be looking
Mhm.
for examples. I'm like, okay, now it's a challenge. So it's kind of like getting
Mhm.
excited about the challenge.
So you find
And
a thing that you're like,
yeah,
even if you
trying
don't
to
like the general
incorporate,
thing.
yeah, something that kind of spices it up. And I do think as well, like on that same note, starting off, you might be doing projects that you're not excited about, or that you always should bring your kind of touch to everything.
Mhm.
But also because you are working with companies, you're working with clients, and they have certain uh, preferences,
Mhm.
as well as, sometimes analytics to back up their preference.
Mhm.
So you do have to stay in this realm of client needs, but trying to find, again, that's kind of like the drawback of like working in-house, right? But like trying to find that kind of beacon of hope, either that challenge or somewhere where you can kind of push the boundaries a bit, or, just put more of your style on it. Um, and just get excited about it, get excited about it. And sometimes it is just about sitting down and just doing it, and just like getting in the mode of just technicality. And before you know it, like it's done, and you can stand by what you did, and that's it.
Think about the end. Keep the end in mind. Like,
Yeah, yeah. So
get
I try,
yeah.
and like honestly, like that's what I was saying. I try to just get in the groove of like
Mhm.
technicality. So I'm just like, I'm in the mode of working, and sometimes that alone can kind of just relieve that feeling, because you kind of just get into the creative flow.
Mhm.
And so, you're less worried about not liking it so much.
That makes sense. That
Hmm.
makes sense. You get started. So those are
Yeah,
two more
get started.
questions, and that'll be it. So do you recommend the Google certificate for UI UX career path?
I've looked into it, um, and I don't want to say yes or no. Based upon my research, I'm leaning. Again, I don't want to say yes or no, because I think that some people benefit from it, but it is kind of it's a 50-50 thing, at least from what I've explored and I
Mhm.
researched. Um, I will look into. Okay, let me write this down, because I have a friend who did a program. The colleague that I spoke about earlier, who works for a major bank as a UI UX designer, and she did a certificate based program, and they help with the mentorship aspect of it as well. And she was hired. So, I think that I can stand by recommending her course.
Mhm. And then last question, also a general question. Some of the things you already covered, but maybe you could just you could review, and that'll be what we end on. How do freelancers and beginners get work?
Okay, so so again, there's platforms, that I have in the handout as well, like Upwork and Fiverr and Freelancer. But I must say, most of my earlier work came from sharing my work and building my network and letting people know that this is what I'm doing. To be quite honest, the majority of my clients came from posting my work on social media,
Mhm.
letting my friends and family know what I was pursuing and what I was doing, because word of mouth is very strong. Um, and then also, I think again, joining those platforms, but there was something else I was gonna say. Oh, it was right on the tip of my tongue. But yes, sharing the work is huge, because it's crazy how, people will reach out, and like sharing your work to platforms, and also um pivoting yourself. Like, if you do have a portfolio, and you like, again, you see somebody may need help, or a brand might need help, and getting that real life experience. Hmm. By finding kind of like a problem that you can solve.
That's like the top thing. Yeah, if you
Mhm.
can help somebody, if you can fill a need,
Mhm.
you create
Mm.
some value for people. Cool. Well, Blake, thank you so much. You spent a lot of time with us, answered a lot of questions, gave us an informative and beautiful and interesting presentation. So again, much gratitude on my behalf and also on behalf of the folks that are out there. And thank you to the people that are out there for being with us
Yes,
here, for
yeah.
asking your questions. I do have a small request. I'm going to post a post-event survey in the chat. So if you're out there and you can spend a couple of minutes filling out the post-event survey, it's very helpful for both knowing how this program went, but also for planning programs in the future. I read all those surveys. Sometimes I respond to the surveys. So, please do fill that survey out. It would be very much appreciated. Again, thank you, Blake. Thank you to the folks out there, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you all.